Hey y'all, Zach McDonald, your real estate agent with Real Property Associates. And in today's video, we are going to talk about selling your house for top dollar in a hot housing market like Seattle coming up. As a real estate agent in Seattle, Washington, one of the hottest real estate markets in the country here for multiple years running, I get asked this question a lot. And anytime I have a conversation with sellers, people ask me what they need to do or what the strategies are for getting the most amount of money for their house. And I recently filmed a video talking about some of the challenges or the downsides to pricing your house too high or overpricing your house. And I'll link that up down below as well if you want to take a look at it. But in this video, I want to focus on some of the strategies for getting the most amount of money for your house and what that looks like. As we jump into this conversation about maximizing the value or sales price for your home, the first thing I want to talk about is just your emotions. Okay? Most people are very emotional about their money versus tactical about their money. But the most successful investors are tactical versus emotional. So when we think about selling your house, we want to be tactical. And I'm going to give you some tactics for maximizing the sales price for your house. Not necessarily the list price, those are different things. I'm going to give you some tactics for maximizing the list price of your house. And I want you to think through, as we're going through this video, about detaching the emotional aspect and focusing on the best strategies for maximizing the sales price of your house. As we talk about pricing your home to sell for top dollar, we're going to talk about 3 P's, all right? The first P is preparation. When we talk about preparation, we're talking about getting your house ready to sell. The first thing that you're going to do is make repairs or improvements. And when we talk about improvements, I'm talking about high ROI improvements, ones that are actually going to make you more money versus cost you money, if that makes sense. When we talk about ROI, we want that to go up, not down. So when we're talking about repairs, we're talking about fixing things that are broken, okay? We're talking about maybe painting where paint's needed, whether that's inside or outside. Most of the time as a homeowner, you know what's not working with your house, okay? It's pretty obvious. So whatever jumps to your mind first, that's what we want to focus on. We want to make those repairs, and then we want to focus on, after we've made those repairs, maybe a few high ROI improvements. The second part here is decluttering the house. Most people, when they live in their house, live in their house. And so you live in a way that's functional to you, but it might not be the most aesthetically pleasing to potential buyers or homeowners. Now, I'm a homeowner. I have 3 kids, and we definitely don't live in a state of... Now, my wife is super on top of it and hates having any kind of clutter in the house. I don't really care, so I tend to have a higher tolerance for it. So she's usually the one saying, hey, it's time to clean up. We need to do this. Kids, let's go. But even then, I mean, how well does a 3-year-old clean? Not very well. So if you're like me, you don't live in a state of perfect. So you have to put some effort into decluttering and minimizing what's on the countertops, putting things away, maybe putting things in some boxes or storage, packing up a little bit. But let's declutter and get the house in a more presentable fashion. We also want to focus on the outside. So we want to get the house ready on the outside. We call this the curb appeal. What's that first impression when somebody comes to the house? We want to get the yard cleaned up, maybe just some pruning, really basic stuff. It doesn't have to be brand new bark. It doesn't have to be fresh flowers, but it could be all those things. But I think just some basic landscape cleanup goes a long way. Lastly, as we're preparing your house, we want to consider staging. Now, I don't recommend staging for everybody, and honestly, your house will sell with or without staging, but if you're currently living in the house, it might be nice to get some advice on how to maximize your current furniture, maybe supplement it a little bit. If you're not living in the house, it might be nice to stage some of those main areas so people can get an idea of what it's like to live in your house, but maybe not stage the entire thing. So staging is one of those things we can talk about, and I'm happy to give some advice on as well. The second P for selling your house for top dollar in a hot housing market is your pricing strategy. I'm going to repeat that. Pricing strategy. Now, when we talk about the value of your house, I always tell people the value of your house is not a specific number, it's not a set number, it's a range. And so the range is my best guess based on recent sales and experience in the market on what I think your house will sell for in the open market. Sometimes that recommendation is actually above what I would recommend the price be for listing, but again, it comes down to the strategy that you want to use. Now, there really are only 3 pricing strategies, and I don't want to go too far into the weeds here, but you can price your house above the market value, right? There are lots of risks, in my opinion, with that, which I talk about in a separate video that I mentioned earlier. You can price it at the market value. And I will say here that I think whenever you sell your house, you have to price it in a place that you're willing to sell it for. So you don't want to underprice your house to where you're uncomfortable taking an offer at that price. You don't want to anticipate and hope for multiple offers to bump that price up. Now it can, and a lot of times that will happen in a hot housing market, but you have to price your house at a price you're willing to accept if there are no other offers aside from maybe one buyer that's interested. Ultimately, it's not fair to consumers for you to price your house in one place and then say, oh, actually, I'm not willing to accept that offer. Sorry, come back, try again. So we need to honestly price your house, but at the same time, what we've seen in a hot housing market versus a slow housing market, right? See, a slow housing market's completely different, and maybe there's another video to come on how to price your house to sell in a slow housing market. But in a hot housing market, the trend is if you're pricing on the lower end of that value range or even below, you have a lot higher chance of getting the best price for your house. Because what happens is you're showing up on more people's searches, you're showing up on more people's radars, and you're getting a lot more activity in the house, right? And then you're getting competition, which drives the price up. So a lot of times, that aggressive list price ends up netting you more money, getting you more money in the end than that high price. The other question here is, do we list our house for what it's worth, or do we list our house tactically? Again, your house isn't necessarily worth a specific dollar amount. So my opinion, it's better to list your house tactically than it is to list it for what it's quote unquote maybe worth. Just to reiterate, as far as these 3 Ps, the pricing strategy is the number 1 to getting your house sold for the top dollar. Okay, out of all the 3, this is the most important one. I have other videos that talk about some pricing strategies as well as some of the pitfalls for overpricing your house, and those are going to be linked up somewhere below this video. The 3rd P to maximize the sales price of your house to sell for top dollar is the presentation. When I talk about presentation, I'm meaning the online presentation, and I'm also meaning the in-person presentation. After all of your prep work and thinking through pricing strategy, we want to be putting our best foot forward online. Now, historically, curb appeal meant showing up to your house and what does it look like when you get there. And people still do drive-bys, and people still will actually drive by on Google Maps now, a little bit different. But the appeal, that curb appeal, starts online. It starts there. So you need to have professional photography. You need to have a video tour. You need to have a 3D walkthrough. If you don't have those things in today's market, you're really not putting your best foot forward. So those are things that I pay for all my clients, because I think it's really important. I think that of all the things, we talked about price, but this would be almost as important as the prep work. It's the presentation. What's it look like? So you want to have the best presentation online so you're attracting buyers to come look at your house. And you also want to attract the right buyers. So price helps attract the right buyers, but so does the presentation online. If they do the video tour and they do the 3D walkthrough, or they look at the photos and they decide this isn't the right house for them, great. Let them go look at somebody else's house. But at the same time, you might get somebody really excited about it from the online presentation. So this online presentation is huge, okay? Don't get me wrong. The price is super important, and I'd still say it's the most important, but the marketing material, what it looks like online, is huge. It's your first impression. Your first impression is online, so you gotta make it count. The second part of presentation is the in-person presentation, and we talked a lot about prep work and getting your house prepared for the market, and that ultimately is what helps you nail this in-person presentation. Ultimately, buyers are going to make their final decision after viewing your house in person. So you want to make sure that you nail this piece of the presentation too. Now that we've covered the 3 P's, preparation, pricing strategy, and presentation, you are now prepared to sell your house for top dollar in a hot housing market. And if you're in the Seattle area, Bellevue area, or one of the surrounding suburbs, I'd love to have this conversation with you if you'd like to talk a little bit more about your situation. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to check out the links below if you want to learn more about pricing strategy and some of the pitfalls of overpricing your house.